welcome to the Ghost of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm McKelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 23 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire series by George R.R. Martin. Today we're discussing chapter 22 of A Game of Thrones, Arya 2.
So we're going to chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you. And hopefully we'll provide you with some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts, provide useful background, compare it to the TV show, and indulge in a little pedantry. Be sure to check out the show notes. They'll provide you with some interesting information about the characters and other things of note in this chapter. How are you?
I'm doing okay. How about you?
Well, as you were aware, we've had some appalling weather.
We have,
this
yes.
last week.
Wow.
And we had a storm come through that just knocked a ton of things down. And my mother-in-law's house was hit by a giant pine tree. I'm dealing with an insurance company, the restoration company that they've recommended, the tree removal company that they work with.
Yeah.
But two trees fell, one on my mother-in-law's house and one on the house next door, and they have a common root ball.
Oh.
So he's got a different tree person.
Oh my, this is getting complicated.
And the HOA, the homeowners association, so that, you know, a townhouse, for those who don't know, townhouse is part of a sort of group of houses, and they all connected, and they all pay fees to a homeowners association for sort of care and uptake of the grounds. They're not giving any help, but they're insisting that we use a specific restoration company, not the one approved by the insurance company, for the exterior repairs.
Well, if they're not giving any help, why do they get a say?
So,
oh man, I'm sorry.
Because they want consistency of look and feel on the outside, you see.
I guess, yeah.
But it's a real pain.
So, oh wow, yeah, that is.
And I'm dealing with it all over this weekend. And all of the people involved use phone answering services. So I keep on phoning these disinterested minimum wage housewives, explaining all this stuff to them, only to receive a call back 10 minutes later and have to re-explain it to another person.
Oh, man. That is no fun for sure. Oh, man. Wow.
So yesterday, the trees got taken out yesterday by the neighbour's tree guy.
Okay.
Because talking to my restoration company, who were recommending a different tree guy, they said the insurance company hasn't yet approved the removal of the tree.
What?
But I'm sure they will.
Right, I would think so. Yeah, that's got to stay there.
And so I said, well, what would you do? And they said, I would tell that guy to take the tree down while he's there with a crane.
Right. Yeah,
so I did. So fingers crossed I'm not on the hook for that.
Oh, man. What a situation. Well, maybe we can take your mind off it for a little bit while we talk some Arya too.
Talk about Arya, that's better. So a quick recap of what Arya was up to previously. Last time we saw Arya, she was in the town of Darry, having been found and brought before the king and queen.
How's that pronounced?
Darry. Joffrey's lies and Cersei's cruelty drove her to tears and a righteous anger. Since then, her friend Micah has been killed by Sandor Clegane, for which nobody has censured the Hound. Whilst we did not see her, we know that she arrived in King's Landing with her father, presumably in a bad mood.
Yep.
Kelly, why don't you hit us with the summary?
They were probably all in a pretty bad mood by the time they got to King's Landing. That
seemed that way.
They've aged a good bit too. Yeah. So Arya sits at dinner.
On the subject of aging, actually, did you hear what our head of R&D said about his aging? That he's aging in dog years since he took the job. I thought was funny.
I did not.
He does look like a shell of a man already.
Oh man, that's a tough spot to hop into, I guess. So Arya sits at dinner with Sansa and the Stark household staff. Her father arrives late, and Arya can tell he's been fighting with the small council again. When talk of the tourney in his honor comes up, he gets quite annoyed, but Sansa, on the other hand, gets quite excited. He eventually relents and says the girls can go, to the tourney, that is. Arya has no interest because Prince Joffrey will be there, and she now hates Prince Joffrey. Sansa responds that she isn't wanted anyway, and Ned snaps. I believe her words are, "You shan't be wanted."
Uh-huh.
And Ned snaps at her. He commands that they act like sisters, and then loses his appetite and leaves the hall. And so with Ned gone, Arya feels alone and misses her brothers. She used to love these people in the room with her. They're all in a big hall having dinner, but she no longer feels that way. She can only now think that none of them did anything about the queen killing Lady and the Hound killing Micah. She goes to leave too, but Septim Ordain rejects her request to leave. So she takes off running. She runs to her room and bars the door and takes out her sword needle. She hates herself because all the bad things that happened since the Trident were her fault, so says her sister and her sister's best friend, Jane Poole. Others try to get in, but she refuses until Ned shows up. She lets him in, and he's surprised to see her with a sword. He compares her wild streak to her Aunt Lyanna, and he tells her that Micah and Lady's deaths were not her fault. Then explains that King's Landing is a dangerous place, and they must be a strong pack to survive, comparing the family to a pack of direwolves. He tells her she can keep the sword, which she gets very excited about. And later she meets Syrio Forel. He is to be her dancing master, only he dances with a sword.
Mm-hmm. So Ned's not really making friends on the small council, it seems.
That seems to be a theme.
Yeah. We did figure that his Stark northern blood can't be mixing too well with the fools and flatterers.
Yep. We were picking up on that in his last chapter.
Yeah. And he doesn't seem to be winning the argument about the tournament.
No.
Which is definitely going to happen.
As the rest of the council kind of surmised was going to be the end result when he said, I'm going to talk to Robert about this.
When he's late for dinner, but he sees all the Stark men are already eating, he says that he's pleased to know there are still some men of sense in this city.
Yes.
An attitude I take to eating as well.
Right.
I don't like to stand on ceremony.
So yeah, when Sansa catches wind of the tourney, she has a very different reaction to that of Ned.
Yes.
It's all part of her little fantasy world that she so longs for, with gallant, or as Sophie Turner on the show says, gallant. Gallant knights competing for honor and fame, and courtly ladies dressed in their finest, and yada, 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 all that jazz.
If she knew the cost, if she knew how much this was costing the realm, she probably still wouldn't
She
care.
wouldn't care. No.
Yeah. So Ned doesn't want his household involved in the folly, but it's weird actually that Septim Ordain is the one that points out it would be pretty bad optics for the family not to show up for the tournament in his honor.
Right, yeah. That might look odd.
Arya definitely doesn't want to go, but that's because she just doesn't want to be in the same planet as Joffrey.
No, yeah, she really not a fan. And that's when Sansa says, you shan't be wanted anyway. And Ned's head goes... that was the response I expected her to have when Arya didn't want to go into the wheelhouse. I expected her to be good idea.
Yeah.
You shan't be wanted.
Yeah. Yeah, so Ned's struggling with the single parenting, it seems.
Yeah.
Maybe packing Kat off home so quickly wasn't as good an idea as he thought. But again, he wanted to keep it all under wraps that she ever came.
You know, if she takes as long to get back to Winterfell as he took to get from Winterfell to King's Landing, he might be able to fetch her pretty quickly. And
Just
be like, bad idea.
Take a boat, end around.
Yes.
So Ned really lays into the two girls, telling them they're sisters and they have to act like that.
Which seems like they are, based on
the way they're fighting
with
each
each
other.
Exactly. And Sansa's sitting as far away from Arya as possible without irking Ned. Arya notices. And, of course, we learn a little bit why, and it's kind of a heartbreaking deal. So Ned leaves, and Arya's feeling alone. She's missing her brothers, with whom it's pretty obvious she has a lot more in common than she does with Sansa. So
She also feels like she used to know all these people at the table, but then her sense that they betrayed her by not holding the king and queen accountable for Micah.
Right, yeah.
For letting that be water under the bridge.
And we get a little more of her unassuming, kind of commoner look at the world. She talks about how from free riders to knights, she would horse around with them and get to know their wives and play with their kids, and she's just one of the people.
And a nickname to one of them was Arya Underfoot.
Yes. Now she hates it all, and they all let her down.
Yeah. Jane Poole, being a bit of a ghoul,
Yes.
laughs that Micah was cut into so many pieces that when they gave him back to his father, he thought it was a bag of slaughtered pig.
Jeez, sweet kid, that Jane. Good Lord.
But I mean, if you don't feel any attachment to it and you're a teenager, you like ghoulish things.
Yes, yeah.
So Arya storms out and heads back to her room. Septim
Yes.
Ordain's mad.
Much to the protest of Septim Ordain, which is twice now that she is...
Every Arya POV needs a storm out from Septim Ordain.
Right.
So she gets past the guard. There's a guard at the...
You'll see why we're laughing later. I'm sorry.
There's a guard guarding the entrance to the Tower of the King, the Tower of the Hand, which is where their chambers are. He's known as Fat Tom. She gets past Fat Tom, quite easily.
Yeah, she slides between his
legs. Yeah. He must be very tall, Tom, as well. And she goes to her bedroom and bars the door.
Yes, and this is when we find out why Sansa is sitting so far away from Arya. It's because both Sansa and Jane Poole have convinced Arya that all the bad stuff that's happened is all Arya's fault. Of course, we know that's not true, but she doesn't seem to. So.
Yeah, but I mean, she's right in some ways. You can trace it back to her sparring with Micah. If she hadn't done that, none of this would have happened. But
yeah, and you could do that with any traumatic event, really.
Something you did
yes.
could have changed history. But
do you remember when the Memorial Day baseball incident in my family from about
I remember it well.
10 years ago.
I do remember
yes,
it well.
As do I. We went Memorial Day, we went out, and my son used to be a baseball player before he became a tennis player. And I was pitching to him, and he was batting, and Stacy, who was quite the accomplished softball player in her day, was shagging fly balls out in left field.
That means catching them?
Yes, sorry. Catching fly balls out in left field. And one time I pitched the ball. Ethan hit the ball, a drive to left field, and Stacy circled under it. And all of a sudden, I saw the ball bounce into the air, and Stacy dropped to the ground. And it turns out she wasn't wearing her glasses, which was probably not a great idea. So you can trace many things back to this situation.
So the glasses, that's what you're blaming your wife for this.
No, Ethan blamed himself, and then I was thinking, like, if I hadn't suggested we go do that, you can always trace things back to, like, if we just hadn't done this. So
she could have just caught it.
She could have. Yes, we could have kept playing and having a great old Memorial Day.
But so much has come from that. I mean, I know she's had an awful time because she was badly hurt.
Yes. The top right side of her teeth were knocked in.
Oof.
Yeah.
But we have had some funny stories out of it.
So there's a silver lining.
Yeah, for us, for me, I really didn't have to deal with much of that. It's like my tree stuff. You're going to laugh about. Well, I'm going to have lots of stories about this tree stuff. Yeah?
You are, yes. I will.
You're going to laugh about it. I'm suffering right now. You suffered in this period, but now we can laugh about it.
That's a good point. Anyway, we've gotten slightly off topic, but.
So Arya dreams of scaling the walls of the Tower of the Hand just like Bran would and running away. She could just take her sword, steal food like she used to in Winterfell.
Yep. She's going to go find Nymeria and make her way back to Winterfell, or maybe to Jon at the Wall.
Yeah, although I don't think there are female members of the Night's Watch.
No, there's not.
Yeah,
but people keep calling her boy anyway.
That's true.
So, you know, for a while she might get away with it.
So she digs out needle from her wardrobe chest and starts to sort of practice a little bit.
Yeah, while she's having all these thoughts of guilt and stuff, she's digging needle out. And at the same time, a parade of people keep coming knocking at the door for her, and they're being brutally rebuffed by her. And that is until... It's Fat Tom and Septim Ordain that keep coming to the door until Ned knocks at the door, and then she lets him in, of course.
She's able to rebuff Fat Tom very easily, and this is why we're kind of laughing a little bit. Fat Tom says, "Arya, are you in there?" And she says, "No." And Fat Tom goes, "Oh, okay," and wanders back to his post. More on that later.
Yes, hold that thought.
The door is barred, so there really is nothing anyone can do. So,
right.
But then Ned knocks and she lets him in.
Yes.
She kind of gormlessly forgets that she's carrying a sword that she needs to not own.
Yeah, she had time.
Yeah.
he wasn't getting in until she opened the door. So
he recognizes that it was made in Winterfell because the smith Mickon left his mark on it.
Which exasperates him. He says the hand is supposed to rule the 7 kingdoms, and he can't even rule his own household, which is in reference to his 9-year-old being armed by his own forge, as he says.
But she won't tell him who got the sword made for it. But I don't really understand that. I mean, it doesn't feel like Jon would get into an awful lot of trouble.
No.
What would you do? Banish him to the wall?
He's going to send a sternly written letter by a raven. So Ned claims that she has a wildness in her that his father called wolfblood, and says that both Lyanna, his younger sister Lyanna, and his older brother Brandon both had it, and now they're both dead. So that kind of alarms him a bit that she too has it.
Yes. He says that she reminds him of both Lyanna, both in personality and looks, which amazes Arya because she knows from stories that Lyanna was beautiful.
Yep.
and something that she'd never heard about herself.
Again, little sister perspective, reading too much into what her older siblings tell her about herself.
And Ned basically sort of like, I don't think he wants to suppress the wolf blood. He likes that about Arya, but that in King's Landing it could get her into significant trouble.
Certainly could.
Yeah.
There's a funny line though when Ned asks her if she knows the first thing about sword fighting, and her response is, "Stick them with the pointy end."
Yeah.
That's really the gist of it.
Yeah,
She's got the gist.
So she tries to explain that she's trying to learn to that it was her trying to learn to sword fight that led into the whole mess at the Trident, but she can't get the words out.
Yeah. Pretty much what she gets out is that it's all her fault that Micah and Lady are dead. Yeah.
But Ned, doing a bit of good parenting for once, is like, no, it wasn't. It absolutely wasn't. It was the Hound and Cersei who were to blame. And she lists all the people that she hates, which is pretty much the royal family and the Hound.
Yeah, Tommen and Marcella do get spared.
For now, who knows what they'll do to offend her.
Yeah,
Ned finds it hard to disagree with her.
Right, I'm sure he doesn't say it, but I'm sure he's thinking, you have a point. I'm kind of hating all those people as well right now.
And then they were told that Nymeria wasn't found.
Yeah, this breaks my heart,
but
this part.
Arya now explains that she actually had to force Nymeria to run away by throwing rocks at her and hitting her with rocks twice.
Yeah.
And that sort of must have broken her heart.
Yeah.
I wonder if, with hindsight, she would have brought Nymeria back and let Nymeria die instead of Lady. Because that way there would still be one direwolf. Right. Nymeria's out of her life either way.
Right. I guess at least like she was just saying she's going to run away and go find Nymeria. I guess just the thought of Nymeria still living brings her some.
I totally get it. Yeah.
It's like when parents say that they took the family pet to a farm to live out his remaining days on a farm. The kids can at least think, oh, Sparky's living on a farm somewhere in his...
I'm not sure lying to your children's the right thing to do, though. Just FYI. So now it's lesson time. Even a 9-year-old Stark needs to know that winter is coming.
And she does.
Yeah. But it's more than just winter. It's also the metaphor for winter that they have to bandy together. Starks will stay strong as a pack.
Yes.
The lone wolf dies when the winter comes, but the pack survive.
We also... I get now yet a new definition of winter's coming, which seems like one of many definitions we've had to interpret winter is coming. This one seems to refer to hard, cruel times ahead, I think is what he calls it. And he says, we experienced a bit of it when Bran fell and on the Trident. So again, he can't literally just mean a weather forecast.
Yeah,
that winter's coming. So it's kind of our... yet additional one.
Back to my tree situation. My mother-in-law's dog is called Winter, and she's been knocked out of her house by a tree. So she and the dog have been in my house, and sometimes I'll hear footsteps in the hallway, and I'll be like, "Oh, winter is coming."
Yeah. In Bran 3, we learned that it means something terrible is coming down from the north, and that's Bran's dream. The crow says, now you know why you must survive. Winter is coming. Something terrible is coming down from the north. In Tyrion 3, we learned that according to Mormont, is literally winter is coming. The summer is ending. Winter is on its way. And now we've got yet another definition. So, while I was reading through the chapter, just the constant negative outlook for the future for the Stark family had me a little worried about them, and so I was looking up ways that they could deal with this. And I found I do have a minor in psychology. I will say.
You do? I didn't know that. So. I was about to appoint you team psychologist, thinking you had no qualification, but I take it back.
So maybe a psychologist that's an actual accredited psychologist might say I have no idea what I'm talking about, but I did a little Google research, which is a terrible idea when you have any kind of symptoms. Never do that.
Fortunately, in this case, it wasn't you.
Right.
It was some fictional character.
Yes. So I found something called guided visualization, which is a process where you're led through imagining in your mind's eye a relaxing scenario, experience, or a series of images. And the point is to harness the brain's positive response to those images to help you manage your emotions and life's challenges more effectively.
So what would those be for the Starks then? Like
snow
melting.
Yes.
Snow melting.
Dire wolves. Yeah.
You see, I don't know, because you see, I take your point. I mean, obviously, right. I think, as we said maybe last week, we said you could just as easily say summer is coming, because if winter is coming, then summer is also coming. So that would definitely be the optimist's view.
Yes, if you gave a Stark family member a glass of water,
so very much be half empty.
It would be half empty.
But I'm not sure if you are of that mindset. If you are a sort of pessimistic person by nature, I wonder if the visualization actually helps. Because
I have no idea.
Because I wonder if your natural tendency would to visualize the negative thing. You know what I'm saying? And actually, you might find it relaxing to visualize the worst case scenario. So you can learn to deal with it.
Yeah, so you can be prepared. Which is back to my being a pessimistic optimist.
Right.
I think about that the worst thing is going to happen, so I can prepare and be ready for it.
Secretly always believing that the best will happen.
Yes. Ultimately, Ned does tell her, now that we're in King's Landing, it's a dangerous place, and they need to bond together as a family.
Yeah. She and Sansa need to stop the bitterness between them.
Yes.
And they need to be united against their enemies.
Right. He mentions that there are enemies out there, so it's time for her to grow up a bit. No more of these tantrums and outbursts and stuff.
Yeah, but you're right. You said before, he's treading a careful line here as a parent, because he doesn't want to scare a 9-year-old, but at the same time, he does need her to come to heel.
Right. Yeah. Although it's kind of hard to imagine Arya just falling into line and doing everything Septim Ordain asks of her.
But I think she does say, I don't really hate Sansa,
Right, yeah, she does. She says, I don't hate Sansa. In her head, she thinks, that's not entirely a lie.
But yeah, I mean, I think in talking through this, we have glossed over how sweet and tender the scene is.
It really is. It's incredibly sweet. She thinks several times during the conversation how much she loves her dad, and regardless of the tirelessness of his duties, he's still there to make time for her and instill some values and life lessons that he finds important.
A pedantic point. It's not his duties that are tireless. He is tireless in performing his duties.
Yes. Just the duties are probably tiresome.
Very much so.
He's tirelessly tackling it.
So he lets her keep Needle, which she was amazed at.
Yes, and she can't believe it. She says, "For true?" His response made me laugh. He said, If I took it away, no doubt I'd find a morning star hidden under your pillow within a fortnight, and then try not to stab your sister."
But I think there you see that although Arya is young and she is flighty to a certain extent, she is also serious enough to say, I'm not going to stab my sister. Right. I have separated in my mind her from them.
Yeah. So then, it skips ahead a few days, and she is summoned to the small hall, which is the same hall where they were having the dinner in the opening scene of the chapter. And a man named Syrio Farrell is waiting for her in there, and he is to be her dancing master.
Mm-hmm. He's a former First Sword to the Sea Lord of Braavos.
Yeah, which is kind of like the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard here in Westeros.
He's not going to teach her to hack and hammer like a Westerosi knight.
No. He's teaching her the Braavos dance, which is called the water dance, which was referenced in Jon 2 when Jon gave her needle. He said is a Braavos sword. And those, which we talked a little bit about in that chapter, they're duelers found in the free cities of Essos, Braavos, which is not to be confused with Braavos, which is the city in Essos.
So yeah, good chapter.
Yeah.
So background, you want a bit more about water dancing?
So water dancing, it's not exactly how it sounds. There's very little actual dancing involved. It's a style of sword fighting practiced by the greatest Braavos in the city of Braavos. It is named after the custom of Braavos to duel upon the moon pool near the Sea Lord's palace in Braavos. Huh. Yeah. It is said that true water dancers can fight without disturbing the water's surface. I want to see that. That sounds like hyperbole. I'm calling it.
They stand perfectly still. They only disturb the water when they fall over.
Anyway, the water dance is a refined form of fencing in which the practitioner stands sideways and wields a slender blade, much like Needle. It is a swift style that focuses on speed, balance, and grace. And because of this, it requires a slender, pointed blade, far lighter than the swords of a Westerosi knight. So when Pharrell tells her that the sword should become part of her arm, he mentions, she says it's heavy, he says it needs to become part of your arm. That's the basic element of learning to water dance. Beginners will also begin to see with all of their senses. Those are kind of the first things you learn as a novice water dancer.
We could perhaps offer your water dancing teaching as an add-on to the part. At the gold level, McKelly will teach you to water dance.
We're starting a Patreon today. If you want to water dance, $10 a month and you're in.
So the Sea Lord of Braavos, to whom Syrio Forel was first sword,
yes,
is the ruler of the free city of Braavos in Essos, protected by guardsmen led by the first sword. The office is not hereditary. One of the Braavos' citizens is chosen to be Sea Lord by the city's magisters and keyholders through a convoluted and arcane process, rather like the American elections. The choosing process is intense, sometimes described as knives coming out. Once chosen, the Sea Lord serves for life, but sometimes someone will try to cut that life short to effect a change in policy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Statues commemorating past Sea Lords and their achievements line the canals of Braavos.
I guess that's one way to effect change in policy.
Right. Comparison with the television show, the dinner scene is just Arya, Sansa, Septa Mordain, and Ned arriving late. Some of the thoughts that Arya has in the chapter are voiced, so she actually says many things.
Okay.
She and Sansa have a sort of back and forth. Joffrey killed Micah. Micah is dead because of Sansa's lies.
Oh. Yeah.
Show Ned sends Arya to her room rather than her storming off.
Okay.
Ned, there's a little scene just after that where Ned tries to build a bridge with Sansa by giving her a doll, a pretty doll made by the same doll maker who makes Marcella's dolls.
Oh, okay.
And Sansa says, "I haven't played with dolls since I was 8."
Sounds like that olive branch did not.
No, so well.
No.
Ned protested Mordain that war was easier than daughters.
You get the sense he's feeling that in the chapter as well.
Ned and Arya's conversation is pretty well captured. Ned defends Sansa's lie in the TV show. She must take her betrothed's side.
We mentioned that a little bit. We mentioned more that if she had said, yeah, Joffrey's full of crap, that would have even had a bigger impact, negative impact on their betrothal. So.
Yeah. And so that's interesting that because we did talk about Ned's failure to react to her lies.
Yeah.
He clearly was doing that calculus.
But if he was if he had that thought, why did he call her up in the first place? Because he called her up to support Arya's claim.
That's a good point, yeah. Syrio Forel is physically quite different. I think he's bald in the book and sort of curly dark hair in the TV show. He's also... From my reading of the book, he seems quite straight-laced and not very, he's obviously good at it, but he's going to be a sort of strict taskmaster. The TV show one he had a twinkle in his eye and sort of really enjoyed the sort of sparring with Arya. So Pedantry Corner, McKelly's been laughing about this since I mentioned it, but so she eludes Fat Tom by telling him that she's not in the room. So he asks, "Are you in there?" And she says no. And Fat Tom leaves and goes back to his job. So I would argue that fat would not appear to be the most obvious trait of Tom's. He's clearly as dumb as a bag of spanners. Who would put him on guard duty? Who would bring him from Winterfell? I mean, you might as well have Hodor.
Oh man, we have this little sheet that reminds us of things we want to bring up, and I was looking through it yesterday at the swim meet, and I came across this one, and I started laughing out loud. And Stacey was sitting next to me and wanted to know what I was laughing at, and I showed her, and she didn't really get it.
Yeah. But maybe he is. I mean, maybe he's like enormously fat, but you have to be seriously fat to not be called Dumb Tom.
Oh, his weight would really have to be special, because his lack of intelligence surely is special.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, if he's the guard, I mean, like,
yeah,
you could get past him with your shoelaces undone,
These are not the drones you're looking for.
No force required.
Yeah, you don't
just say it.
All
right, so conclusion.
We do have a.
Oh, you do have.
I put a news and notes in there.
Yes,
I just snuck it in right before we started recording. It's one. I just have one word written there, so it's easy for you to overlook. So, Friday night, I was at Molly's swim meet, and Stacy went to a little gathering of some of our friends. And we have a mutual friend named Tony that we know through different walks of life.
I know Tony.
And Tony and Stacy were talking about the podcast, which I always appreciate. And he was saying that he's tuned into a few episodes, even though
he's going to listen to this one.
That's right. Specifically mentioned that he should. And he said he has no idea about the content that we're talking about, but he does tune in just to listen to the two of us interact in our way that we interact. So I thought that was quite the compliment.
That is a compliment. Yes, yeah. I'm touched. Thank you, Tony.
Yes, much appreciated. So yeah, that was really it. Otherwise, we're still working on trying to stick with our episode bonanza for as long as we can do it.
All right, so let's conclude. So Arya and Sansa have definitely not bonded over their shared grief or the common enemies like we thought they.
We had hoped. Yeah. We were wrong.
Arya naturally, feels some blame for Micah and Lady's death.
Yeah, that's understandable, but
wrong.
Wrong, absolutely wrong. Yes, and we get the impression that Ned is at odds still with the small council members. It doesn't seem to be going much better.
Although while I was watching the TV show back for the comparison with the TV show on this, I did notice that Lord Varys was at pains to point out that whilst they weren't totally agreeing with him, they did serve at his pleasure, and he was clearly trying to build a bridge there. I mean, again, that's TV show, not book. So
yeah, well, that's true. He is second in command. Yeah. So but he fears enemies in King's Landing enough so to warn his 9-year-old daughter about them.
Yeah. So winter's definitely coming, that's for sure, one way or another. And single parenting is apparently hard. That's why I stay nice to my wife as much as possible. All right. So as always, you can reach out to us at ghost.harrenhall@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at @ghostharrenhall, Facebook, Instagram, now YouTube.
Yes, we're all over the place. Yeah. So, and hey, if you wouldn't mind going out on iTunes especially, or podchaser.com, and leaving us some reviews and rating us favorably, fingers crossed. Yeah. That would be great. We'd really, really appreciate that, helping us get the word out.
And feel free to send us any emails or tweets. We will mention you on the show.
Yes, please do. We really, really enjoy interacting with the folks that do reach out to us, so please do.
All right. Thanks very much for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.